Hello and welcome to another episode of Coding Session. Right, so today we're going to be looking into X11 double buffering extension. Right, it's a very interesting extension that adds double buffering to X11. And the reason why we're going to be looking into that is because in one of my applications that I work from time to time called Wangtiles. All right, where I just render a cool patterns using Wang tile technique. So I have a sort of like live rendering. Thank you so much, and Heiser for 2 months of Twitch Prime subscription. Thank you. Right. So in this thing, I use the X11 for live rendering, right? And it's actually pretty choppy. Right, so the live rendering of this entire thing is pretty choppy. So I'm gonna even demonstrate you, I suppose. So I'm gonna start Team Ux, right? So I'm starting the Team Ux. So this is gonna be Wangtiles. And maybe we want to actually fetch the latest stuff, right? Let's actually go ahead and fetch the latest stuff. Fetch, prune, origin. Yeah, there we go. And then we're gonna merge origin master. Okay, so I suppose I also want to remove some of the branches in here, so I should have actually cleaned up that before the stream, but whatever, that's totally fine. Okay, so let's recompile everything, and if I run this entire thing, it just renders a bunch of stuff, but I can also do live. I don't know if you see it, but it's not particularly smooth. Maybe it is smooth for you because the video is playing in 30 FPS anyway, but for me this entire thing feels like 30 FPS. And it has a built-in profiler, I think. I think I actually left a built-in profiler in here, which will show you like how much time does it take to render this entire thing. And it clocks around like, well, it's actually getting closer to 60 FPS, but sometimes it exceeds 60 FPS. To be fair, I think we should look at the render grid rather than xput image. Render grid generates the pixels of the frame, and xput image actually puts them on the screen. So if you take a look at the render grid quite often does not exceed 16 milliseconds, which should run it at 60 FPS, but it doesn't really feel like 60 FPS. It doesn't feel like nowhere near 60 FPS, to be fair. And also, we don't even compile with like all of the optimizations turned on. What if we turn on all of the optimizations? Let's actually see. So it's actually 3. Okay, so let's go. So we're gonna wait a little bit until it optimizes everything, and I'm gonna do live. And is it gonna be smooth? If it's gonna be smooth, smooth. If you don't smooth, you lose. So it's still kind of meh, but now render grid doesn't really exceed 16 milliseconds ever, which means that this thing should play at 60 FPS. It must play at 60 FPS because it like never exists, like it has enough time to actually do that. So, and I tried different techniques. Specifically, I tried X11 MIT SHM extension to speed up xput image. Essentially, this extension will allow you to send images to X server via shared memory rather than the Unix socket, right? So usually when you connect to X server, it will do that via the Unix socket. At least it's using Unix socket on my machine. Right, at least it's doing that. So it's actually rather interesting. We can actually confirm that. Can I do something like live? Okay, so this is live, and then I'm gonna do strace. Right, so this is basically strace, but what I want to do, I want to take like 100 first lines of this entire thing, right, and so strace probably prints a lot of shit to the standard output. So let's actually redirect standard output to the standard error to standard output and take like 100 first lines, and let's find all of the open syscalls. Right, I think it's not really open, it has to be connect because you connect to the Unix socket. Right, so how about maybe 1000 lines. Okay, let's actually take 1000 lines, and yeah, here is the connect, and there you go. You see, so it performed a connect syscall, and it connected to something called TMP X11 Unix X0, so it's connected to this specific file, right? And if I go here and check this file, this is a Unix socket, right? So essentially, on my specific machine, it does that via the Unix socket, if I understand things correctly, of course. I might be not understanding things correctly, but it also has like this purplish color and stuff like that. So, and this is through which it sends the images and stuff like that. And X11 MIT SHM extension allows you to do that via the shared memory, which is presumably faster. And that didn't really help as well. So I'm thinking maybe there is a problem with like double buffering or something like that. And I never tried the double buffering extension in X11. So I decided that I'm going to use this as an opportunity to learn about X11 double buffering extension. I know nothing about this extension. Maybe it's an obsolete extension. Maybe nobody's using that extension. But I mean, it makes sense to give it a try anyway, right? It makes sense to give it a try anyway. So let's go. Let's go, Uvu. So I'm going to put some references in here. So specifically, I'm going to put Wang Tiles source code, right? So this is where you can find the source code. And there you go. So we're also going to have some documentation for X11 double buffering extension library, right? So here it is. It's a double buffering extension library, and also MIT SHM, just in case. So MIT is the MIT shared memory extension. There we go. So we tried that. That didn't really help. So we can try to read about double buffering extension library. But it's boring as fuck, by the way. They talk a lot of they talk about a lot of shit that doesn't really make much sense. And it is better to look at the API documentation, right? So API is actually self-explanatory. It's relatively self-explanatory. You have XDB query extension, which I presume tells you whether your server supports the extension or not, right? There's some visual info for whatever fucking reason. I'm not sure if we'll need to use that at some point. But so this one is interesting. XDB allocate back buffer a name. So you can allocate a back buffer for a specific window, right? So, and it returns you a drawable ID into which you can draw shit, right? You can draw your shit into that thing, right? And then you can swap by providing several of these things. Maybe you have to provide like XDB swap info, which is probably a structure. I haven't looked into it, but it feels like it might be a structure that may contain the IDs of the back buffers, and we'll just swap that. At least this is what I see through API. Maybe there's more stuff to it, but API is actually rather concise, right? It doesn't have that many functions in there. And we can give it a try, right? We can give it a try and see how it goes, All right. So what we're gonna try? Are we gonna try to do that in Wang Tiles directly, or maybe in a separate project? Maybe it makes sense to actually do that right inside of the Wang Tiles. Let's actually quickly do that right inside of the Wang Tiles. So I need to sip my tea super quick. Cheers. Alrighty. So let me find live rendering with X11. So this is basically an entry point into X11 application, right? Because our application can work in two modes. It's a live mode and offline mode, right? And essentially, if you're in live mode, the entire execution goes into a completely separate branch, which initializes X11 and opens a window and draws everything there. If you didn't say live, it will go to a completely different part of the application, which doesn't do any of this stuff. And we can treat live rendering with Xlib as basically an entry point for an X11 application. And this is precisely where we open the display and do all of that nasty shit. Right, so the first thing I would like to do in here, I suppose, is to query the X11, the X double buffering extension, right? So this is the thing that we need to actually put in here, right? And let's just try to see, does this accept, yeah, it does accept display, which means that we need to first open the connection to the display. So this is going to be the display, display, more like these nuts. I'm sorry. I just lost half of the viewers right now. So this is what we're gonna have in here, and I'm gonna just do a boom, and it should return something like a status. I would like to take a look at the actual signature of this function, right? And let me go to maybe X11, and I'm gonna just literally grab Rn. So here is the actual thing. It returns the status. And I don't even know what is a status, right? Is it going to be like true or false, 1 or 0? So do they say what it is? So major version return DB protocol, FDB compatible return, but it returns non-zero. Okay, so it should return non-zero. Right, so and we can do something like this. If this thing has succeeded, X11 double, maybe we can call it XDBE is supported, and we can put something like this, version DD, right? So this is going to be the major version, and this is going to be the minor version. And then here we can say something, we can probably even throw an error in case this stuff is not supported. XDBE is not supported. Right, so XDBE is not supported, and then we're going to exit with non-zero exit code, right? So this is what we're going to have in here, and let's try to recompile the entire thing. So is it going to work? Is it going to work now? Yo, it's implicit declaration, and we probably have to actually link this entire stuff with X11 extensions and whatnot, right? So let me go to our build script, and here we're linking with X11, as you can see. Maybe I also have to link with X extensions, and that may work, right? So it says implicit declaration, but the linker should now not complain about not found function, right? So, and we probably need to include this thing via the extension DBE, yeah. So that's probably what we have to do. XDBE query. That's actually very interesting. So, oh, my keyboard has died. God fucking damn it. So recently my keyboard started to like literally die for a couple of seconds and then recover. So I don't know what's up with that. So it's actually XDBE. Okay, so this is what we need to include in here. We need to include XDBE. So we're gonna do include X11 and extensions XDBE, and now it should actually not complain about any stupid fucking shit. Cool. So if I try to run this entire thing live, okay, so it's rebuilding everything. Okay, it says that we have XDB version 1.0, which is kind of nice, isn't it? I think it's kind of nice. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to try to actually allocate the buffer for this entire shit, right? So we're going to be using something like allocate a back buffer for the window. So we'll need to learn what is the XDB swap action, because documentation, I think it doesn't really tell us much about what the fuck it is. So back buffer name returns a drawable ID used to refer back to the back buffer of the specified window. The swap action is a hint to indicate the swap action that will likely to be used in a subsequent calls to XDBE swap buffers. The actual swap action used in calls to XDBE does not have to be the same as the swap action passed to this function, though clients are encouraged to provide accurate information whenever possible. Why can't I just swap the buffer? Why can't I just allocate the back buffer, draw into the back buffer, and just swap it? Why do I have this hint artificial intelligence system that needs some sort of additional information to make it better or something like that? Like, give me a buffer, let me draw there, and let me swap it. How hard is that? People have been doing that for decades. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here, but so we'll need to find this thing, and we need to understand what is XDB swap action. So is it something like a structure, or I don't know. So XDB swap action. All right. So what's that? Ooh, it's an unsigned character. Okay. Not really sure what the fuck is that. So there's also swap actions to use for swap window. Window for which to swap buffers. Swap action to use for swap window. So is there any information on what is a swap action? Complex swap actions. Okay, so there is a complex. DBE has no explicit knowledge of any do I pronounce this word correctly? Ancillary. Celery. Ancillary. Okay. So how do you pronounce this word?
Ancillary.
Ancillary. I actually pronounced it correctly. And in Polish, it's pronounced
Pomocniczy.
like... Pomocniczy. I don't know how to say that in Polish, I'm sorry. So it's like auxiliary? Because I know there's a word auxiliary with X, right? Like in X11, but I never heard about this word before. This is a really strange word. So let's go to Macmillan Dictionary and investigate what the fuck is that supposed to mean. Ancillary. Working with professional people such as doctors and teachers to help them in their work. An ancillary worker. Oh. Okay. English is weird. I never understood English, so maybe I'm not going to even try. Okay. For example, depth buffer, alpha buffer, and only has an implicit set of undefined swap actions. Some applications may need a richer set of swap actions than DB provides. What is, like, why do you need different kinds of swap actions? Isn't like you have the second buffer, you just swap it. You just swap it. Or am I being dumb? Because I worked with double buffering in other libraries, and it's usually, yeah, you just swap it. Just fucking swap it. Just swap it. Just swap it. Just swap it. I'm sorry. Anyway, some DB implementations have knowledge of ancillary buffers and can provide a rich set of... Okay, so instead of continuous extend DB to increase its set of swap action, provides a flexible idiom mechanism. If an application's need are served by defined swap actions, it should use them. Otherwise, it should use the following method of expressing a complex swap actions as an idiom. Following this policy will ensure the best possible performance across a wide variety of implementations. As suggested by the term idiom, a complex swap action should be expressed as a group series of requests. Taken together, this group of requests may be combined into atomic operation by the implementation in order to maximize the performance. Oh, okay. You know, since this entire thing is a character, right? And it doesn't have to be accurate or something. Can I just set it to 0? Can I just set it to 0? I think I want to just set it to 0 and see what's going to happen. You know, this is going to be an exploration. Let's just do exploration and just set all of that shit to 0 and see what's going to happen. Is it going to work? I don't fucking know. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. So we initialized XDB extension. We created a window. As you can see, we managed to create a freaking window, which is kind of POG. Not gonna lie. So here we creating an image, and we're creating an image for like specific depth or something like that. So that's fine. We don't provide the window itself. So after we created the window, I suppose we want to create a back buffer, right? So let's go ahead and create a back buffer. Allocate a back buffer. So back buffer, here we provide the display, right? We provide the display and then we provide the window, and the action is going to be simply 0. There we go. So does this function return any sort of error? Returns a drawable ID. So since it's an ID, we can try to print this entirety, back buffer ID, and it's going to be something like D back buffer. There we go. So this is a back buffer ID. So it, okay, so it had some problems. Well, it looks like a proper ID. Expects argument int, but argument 2 has type xdb back buffer, aka long unsigned. integer. Oof. Long unsigned integer. Love it. So as far as I know, long unsigned is just basically LU, right? So this is going to be that. And a boom. Okay. So this looks like a, you know, buffer ID, I think. I think it looks like a buffer ID. Yeah. Okay. We managed to create this shit. So the next thing we want to do, since back buffer is a drawable, right? It is a drawable. We can try to export image into the back buffer instead of the window, right? You see, we put the image there and that's it, right? Okay. So is it gonna work? It's probably gonna show, yeah, it shows the black screen, but it doesn't shed all over the place with errors, right? So as you can see, it doesn't render anything because we're currently rendering into the back buffer. But I don't see anything wrong going on, right? If the X11 detected that we're doing something wrong, I'm pretty sure it would throw some sort of an error and maybe like close the connection or something like that. So something would happen. But so far, nothing bad is happening. So maybe that's fine. So the next thing we need to do, we need to swap the buffers. Right, we need to swap the buffers. So XDB swap buffer swaps the front and back buffer for a list of windows. The argument number window specified how many windows are to have their buffers swapped. It is the number of elements in a swap info array. Okay, so the swap info is probably an array of structures and so on and so forth. The argument swap info specified the information needed per window to do the swap. Structure has the following fields. So swap action to use for this. I still have no idea what the fuck is a swap action. I just don't know. Maybe I shouldn't care for my specific case because I'm not gonna be doing any sophisticated shit, right? I'm not gonna be doing any sophisticated shit, so I probably shouldn't care, right? I'm pretty sure I just shouldn't care. So swap info. Since we're gonna be swapping only a single thing, I suppose I'm gonna be doing the following stuff. So if I go to here. So this is a swap info. You have a swap window, swap info window. I'm going to assign my current window to this entire shit. And a swap action, I suppose I'm going to set it to 0, right? Because I set this thing to 0 in the beginning, right? And then in here, I'm going to say, like, use this as an array, and the array consists of 1, right? So it's kind of cool. So people constantly complain about C's array, that they're not distinguishable from pointers, but there are situations when it's actually convenient, right? So if you want to have like array of a single element, you can just allocate that single element on the stack and give it the pointer and say this is array of a single element, and it is basically an array with a single element. So there's not that much difference in C between a single element and an array consisting of a single element, right? You can just make it look like it's an array by taking a pointer to it. So it's rather convenient idiom. It's not like, I'm not saying that C approach to arrays is perfect in all the possible way, but sometimes you can do shit like that, which is rather convenient, I would say. So it's convenient in some situations. In the situations C is designed for, I suppose. Anyway, so let's actually try to run this entire stuff. So has no member window. Did you mean swap window? Yeah, I did mean swap window. Thank you so much. Okay. And it's working, actually. And it's still choppy. That's what's funny about this shit. It still feels choppy. But now render grid is kind of actually slow. Right, okay. We learned how to use swap window. Okay, cool. So I guess stream is over. We just used swap window. It didn't make the application faster. So thanks everyone for watching. Love you all. I'm just joking. So yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. It was actually pretty straightforward. Maybe the problem is actually not in rendering itself, but how we generate the frames. You know what I'm talking about? Right, maybe the animation itself is actually pretty choppy by itself. Maybe that's the problem here, who knows. So, and export image is actually still kind of slow. Oh, export image actually feels like very, very fucking slow now, because we're doing all of that shit. Huh. But yeah, the total thing still sometimes exists 60 FPS, so maybe we're not able to do that at 60 FPS. Yes. We can try to change up the, what is it? The shader. Also, maybe we can disable the profiler. Let's actually try to go ahead and disable the profiler. So where do we have define prof? I'm not sure. Oh, we define the profiler in here. Okay, I completely forgot about that. Okay, so I'm gonna put it in here. So this is gonna be that. And let's recompile the entire thing. So there will be no profiling, right? So there will be no profiling. And it's still kind of choppy. And I tried a lot of things to make it less choppy. And I'm starting to believe that it might have something to do with how we generate this animation in general. Right, so if I go to digits, right, and just swap the existing sort of shader, right, so we're gonna have blobs in here, right, so is it gonna be different now? Because this shade looks pretty smooth, doesn't it? It does look pretty smooth. So I don't even know. That's kind of sus, not gonna lie. So, and in here, if I enable the profiling, so I suppose maybe we need to actually bust out like the actual profiling tools, if you know what I'm talking about. Right. Right. Okay, so that's actually pretty cool. Anyways, so I'm gonna do maybe a committee for what we have in here. So what's that? What exactly did I change in here? I'm not quite sure. Is that like a line ending? Oh, it's a 03. Oh, here I basically edit 03, and here I edit the extensions. So, and Yesu, kawaii freaking desu. All right, so let's go. Enable use XDBE extension for live rendering. And I'm gonna push that right into the repo. All right, let's actually make a small break. I'm gonna think about what we're gonna be doing next, and then maybe we can try more things to speed the entire thing up. So apparently X11 like double buffering extension was actually super easy to use. Like yeah, you just use it. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, not gonna lie. So yeah, okay, let's make a small break and so I have an idea. I think the double buffering extension doesn't really make much sense in our case because we're already kind of writing. We already kind of have a double buffering by having a separate X image, right? So we're already kind of imitating double buffering. So because of that, like double buffering doesn't do much. So usually double buffering is needed for like preventing seeing like a previous frame or something like that. So yeah, I think the main problem with wank tiles specifically is how we animate the frames of the wank tiles. I think the choppiness comes from the animation itself, and this is something that we could investigate separately. And at some point, I probably will investigate that, but maybe not for now. So right now, I would like to come up with an example that could benefit from double buffering. Right, so, and I suppose such example would be a simple X11 animation that uses GC to render things. So if you take a look at XSleep manual, let's actually find XSleep manual. Right, XSleep manual. So, and we have an index of the functions, and I think you have something like fill rectangle, right? If you do all of the graphics using this GC thingy and you use their, you know, primitive drawing functions, I think at this point you may need double buffering to like avoid flickering and stuff like that. And this is what I want to try to do. I want to write a simple example that animates like a small rectangle using these functions and then slap the double buffering extension on top of it and see if it will make a difference. Right. Sounds good. Sounds Gucci. Sounds Tamaguchi. And so yeah, let's actually see what's going to happen. I think it's going to be a good example. So we're going to do prob. So db experiment, right? So we're going to have a db experiment, and this is where I'm going to create like a simple program, right? So I just want to have like a very specific example that demonstrates that, oh, okay, so this looks like shit, and when you enable double buffering, it doesn't look like shit anymore. And as far as I know, in X11, there's different approaches to double buffering. So one approach is, I think you can have like a back buffer, like make it yourself with X image. Another one, you can use pixmap. You can draw into separate pixmap and then use X copy area or something. And I think the third approach is using XDB extensions. And we can try actually all of them, right? We can try all of them and see how they, you know, compare to each other. Could be an interesting experiment. What do you guys think? Does it sound like an interesting experiment? Maybe. Maybe it does sound like an interesting experiment. Anyways. So let's include this entire thing. It's going to be x11 xlib.h, right? x11 xlib.h, and let's go. So this one is going to be void, and I'm going to create a make file. Right, so this is going to be a make file. Main.c, cc, c flags, main.c, libs. Okay. C flags, we're going to enable all the warnings, we're going to enable extra warnings, and we're also going to be using the standard C11. We're going to be very pedantic about it, and we are going to be enabling the debug information in executable, right? So the libs we're going to be using X11 and maybe extensions, just in case. We're not going to be using them right now, but maybe later we're going to be using them. All right, so let's actually make the entire thing, and the entire thing seems to be working. So let's actually print hello world, right? So this is going to be hello world. All right, so here is a hello world. If I try to run this entire thing, it says hello world. Okay, cool. So, and let's do a little bit of a copy pasting because initializing X11 is a little bit of a pain. So I'm going to go to the wank tiles and just, you know, do the usual thing. So first thing we want to do, we want to open the display, right? So you just call this function, and if you couldn't open the display, it will return null, and you don't have to worry about that. You just crash. So after that, you need to close the display, right? After you're done with the X11 application, you just close the display. Okay, the next thing you need to do, you need to create a simple window, right? So let's go ahead and create a very simple window. There we go, we just did that. Then, so we're gonna be, yeah, so here we need to get the attributes of the window because we'll need to create an image of the same size, right? So, but maybe we can get the Windows attribute just in case, maybe it's gonna be needed in the future. So the next thing we're going to be doing, we're going to be creating the graphical context, and that graphical context is used for rendering things, right? So next thing, we're setting up a special atom for closing the window. So basically this is the message that we're supposed to receive from the window manager, and this is the message that tells us that the window manager wants us to close the application. So we do need to be aware of that thing as well. Then we are saying that we want to be able to handle key presses by that window, and the last thing we're doing, we're showing that window, we're displaying that window to the user. So the next thing we're doing, we are organizing the loop, the event loop, and we keep looping until the close condition has been met. So what we're doing here, we're using expanding to drain the event queue, right? So that's what we're doing. While we have any pending events, we get that event, we look at that event, right? We look at that event, and if it's a key press, right? We look at what key was pressed, right? So in case of a queue, we're going to say that we're going to quit. So the rest of the keys here are just basically stuff from the previous application. We don't really care about them. And if the message is the client message from the window manager to delete the window, we also, you know, indicate that we want to quit, right? So the next thing is going to be what? So after we've done that, So is there anything else we need in here? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this is the simple X11 application, right? Yeah, so this is like a minimum code that we'll probably need to, you know, to have a window in Windows. We don't really need graphical context to just create a window, right? But we'll need it in the future because we're going to be drawing with the graphical context, right? So, okay, let's try to recompile the entire thing and see if it's going to be working, if it's going to be twerking. So we don't have exits, so that means I need to include stdlib, right? So, and we don't have a graphical context, so maybe I'm going to actually comment it out for now, right? So, and if I do something like this, main, there we go, we got a window. So I don't know how to set the title of the window, right? Is there any way to set the title of the window? Maybe you can do that with X simple window. Let me take a look. Title. So, all right, this one is actually very interesting. This is actually very interesting. So the title, oh, the title could be a concept from Window Manager. So it could be that you would have to tell the Window Manager to set the title, and it's not really a sleep thing. All right, so maybe I shouldn't. Oh, well, you can set icon, right? You can set icon. The string is not, but can you set? Well, I didn't really care about this too much, but it's just like something that could be interesting to do anyway, because that's not the point of the of what we're doing right now, right? It's not the point. Okay, so let's try to draw a single rectangle, right? A single rectangle. You can draw it like this, but I think if you just call this entire thing, nothing is going to happen, right? Because you may notice that we don't specify any color of the rectangle, right? So there is a special thing that you have to do with colors and whatnot, if I remember correctly. So let's actually draw a rectangle of 100 by 100 and see if it's gonna do anything, right? So I forgot to recompile the entire thing. Oh boy, make minus b, right? So this is going to be that, and we cannot see anything. We can try to do that on each individual frame, right? On each individual iteration, just in case. I think you have to do that on expose event, right? So this is like a separate thing that you also need to be aware of, like expose. But I don't think it matters that much, right? Because yeah, we're animating anyway, so. Anyway, so I don't remember how to. We've got a subscriber. Thank you so much for the subscription. Just a second, I will see who's that. So Droka 69. Thank you so much for 5 months of Twitch Prime subscription. Thank you. Really appreciate it. So. All right. Thank you so much for the subscription. Really appreciate it. Okay, guys. So what I was doing, I think, yeah. So I'm thinking how I want to approach that. Do I want to try to extract this information from the documentation, right? From the documentation, or do I want to Google up the tutorials? So I don't know. It depends. I might as well actually try to extract this information from the documentation. Okay. So X create GC, right? So we can take a look at X create GC. And what do we accept here? We accept XGC values, right? So when we create this entire thing. And here we have a lot of things. Fill style, so you can customize all of that stuff. So is there, oh, there's a lot of information in here. Cup butt, haha. So so oh my god, this is actually very inconvenient. Okay. Okay. Manipulating graphics context state. We already looked into that. Line style. Let's Google the tutorials then. GC X11 GC set color. Because such a simple thing as setting color has to be overcomplicated, of course. All right. So yeah. Okay. So yeah. Set. Holy shit. Yeah. Okay. It's so bad. Look. X set foreground. Yeah. Of course. Obviously. Fucking obviously. That's how you do that. Yeah. Set foreground and specify the foreground you want to use for the specified. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I wonder where I want to set this entire thing. Let's actually set it somewhere here. So we have a display, GC, and foreground. And can I do something like FF0000? Will that create a red one? Yeah, there we go. So that's how we're going to be doing all of that. That's how we're going to be doing all of that. So is there any way to clear area? You can clear the area. And exposures, specify the Boolean value that indicate if exposure event are to be generated. Okay, that's pretty cool. So, and I suppose one of the things we want to do in here, right, one of the things we want to do in here is probably constantly sort of like clean this entire thing, right? So this is going to be display, this is going to be window, 0, 0, width and height. Do we have a constants for width and height? We don't have constants for width and height. So maybe we can actually define them. It would be actually better to get the current width of the window, right? But I can do something like this. So it's going to be 800 and the height is going to be 600. There we go. So this is going to be width. This is going to be height. There we go. And what else do we have in here? So when we're cleaning the area, width, height, exposures is going to be false. So we're not going to be doing anything, any of that. All right. So, and as you can see here, we have a lot of problems. Oh, it's actually lagging. It's actually lagging. So I suppose we need to sleep a little bit to sort of make it like 60 FPS or something, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I think we could do something like use sleep. Oh my God, I just made a typo and it doesn't. Yeah, there we go. Use sleep accepts microseconds, right? It accepts microseconds. So and we want to take a single second. So this is the milliseconds, this is the microseconds, and then we want to divide all of that by 60. So this is going to be sort of like a 60 FPS situation going on. All right, so we also need to include unistd. All right, there we go. This is the unistd. Is it going to work? So maybe we also have to do something like define, I don't know, GNU source. I don't know, GNU source. I really don't care. Okay, that's cool. So can you actually notice a little bit of flickering once in a while? When I resize, but I can actually see that flickering, right? I can actually see that. Maybe we can set up the position of the rectangle and constantly animate it, right? So we can do something like X. Rect X, and then we're gonna have Rect Y, right? So Rect X and Rect Y, here we're gonna be doing it like this, Rect X, Rect Y, and over time we're gonna be animating it by just doing something like +1, I suppose, right? And let's see if it's gonna, so what, by 1 pixel, there we go. You can't see that. But I can see that. Fuck. So maybe because it's like too big of a FPS, right? So maybe if I set the FPS to, let's say, 30, right? Yeah, it looks actually absolutely smooth to you. But for me, once in a while, it flickers. Still smooth. Okay, that's very interesting. How can I demonstrate to you that it actually flickers? It has to actually sort of fall into... Yeah, I don't know. What if we reduce the FPS? What if we keep reducing the FPS? So it's gonna be 20. If you don't see it on OBS live, you won't be able to see it on the recording as well. You can see flickering once in a while. Okay, so what if we reduce the FPS even lower? Okay, so what if we go in the opposite direction? What about 120 FPS? Okay. Can you put it on GitHub? All right. So yeah, basically OBS obscures the flickering, unfortunately, which makes it actually kind of difficult to demonstrate. Unfortunately. I can put it on GitHub, of course. So let's actually go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna do git ignore, right? So we're gonna git ignore the main, and we're gonna do git init. There we go. Ready, set, go. All right. So I'm gonna also put. Let me release all of that under MIT license, and we're gonna do readme.md. Where is it? Readme.md. X11 double buffering experiment. Trying different approaches to double buffering in pure X11 applications on Linux specifically. Right, we're gonna have a quick start. Right, in a quick start you just do console make and then main. There we go. So, and the approaches that we're going to be using, I suppose, are essentially no double buffering, which we kind of already implemented. So X image via X image, back buffer in X image, back buffer in pixmap, and xdbe, and I'm gonna give the link to xdbe here. So we're gonna try to use like all of these approaches. Okay, so and release under MIT license, right? Release under MIT license, add readme, right? And I'm gonna go to here. And let's create this thing. So how am I gonna call this repo? DB xdbe experiment. Is that a good name? X11 double buffering. Right, so this is going to be like that. And this is going to be the description. Right, this is going to be the description. Then we're going to make it public. And there we go. There we go. So I'm going to copy this entire thing and I'm going to add origin. This is the URL and a boom. So this is going to be default push thingy, and it already pushed it already, right? So it's already, well, it doesn't feel like it pushed it. Okay, so let's actually push it specifically. Yep. Okay, would you look at that? Here is the source code. Try it for yourself on your machine if you're interested. I'm also going to put that in the description for lovely people on on YouTube, because all of that shit is going to be available on YouTube. So you can check out the YouTube channel where we upload the VODs in here. Okay, so this is going to be source code, and there we go, X11 double buffering. So try it on your machine and tell me if you can see the flickering, right? If you can see the flickering. Alrighty, so let me go ahead and do that, and so I'm gonna just try to run this entire stuff. Okay, seems to be working for me, right? So if you try it on your machine, let me know in the chat or in the comments on the YouTube video. So yeah. I can't see any flickering. Oh, that is very, very interesting. Huh. Occasional stutter, but no flickering. This is so interesting. Maybe it's something with my machine. So wait a second. I'm gonna try the following thing. Okay. So what? Okay, I have a couple of ideas. So there's something wrong with my. Okay, this is 100. Okay. So probably, you guys probably have VSync enabled or something. I don't know. Maybe because of a CRT monitor. No, it's actually, I don't know what it is actually. But it's not definitely not CRT. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna try to continue doing this entire thing, and XDBE. Your machines are probably super fast. I have like a very potato laptop with Intel graphics cards, so so that's probably the case. Your machines are too powerful, right? So this is my machine, by the way. So this is the shit I use every day. Look at that. Try to disable VSync. Yeah, try to disable it if you can, of course. Then don't force yourself to do that and screw up your configuration, of course. Yeah. So this is a machine that I've been using every single day since 2013 or 14, so for 6 or 7 years without like changing anything actually. The only thing I did, I actually added a little bit of RAM because the original machine came with 4 GB, so I bought another 4 GB and just added there. So now I have 8 GB. You have now the, oh, I think I have the second laptop, but it's like kind of retired already. So yeah, and I've been streaming and working on this laptop the entire time. All right, that's kind of interesting. Anyway, so let's actually add more features to this entire thing. So what if we increase the size of the rectangle? I have an idea. Okay, so this is going to be 30 FPS, rect width. So right now rect width and rect height is going to be 100 and 100. So this is going to be height. 240 FPS. I saw the flicker square was somewhere in the middle. Oh, okay, that's actually pretty interesting. So try to increase the FPS then. Wait, what? Oh, okay. Okay, so, and what I want you to do, let's try to give the rectangle bigger size. How about 500? Oh shit, it actually works. So I think we have a reproducible example that actually flickers. Okay, so this is too much apparently. Let's actually do something like maybe 300. And now let's actually try 240. Okay, this one actually flickering for me like crazy. All right, so increase the size of the rectangle and FPS. And let's actually push that. Okay, so I increased the size of the rectangle and also try to play with the size of the rectangle yourself as well. Right, so and see at which point it will start flickering. All right, so and I want to continue. I want to actually add more logic in here. For instance, maybe more rectangles and stuff like that. So I suppose it actually greatly depends. Greatly depends on X11 configuration. With 120 FPS and no flickering. Interesting. That is actually very, very interesting. So I guess it greatly depends on the X11 configuration. You can configure X11 to actually do this kind of stuff for you. So, well, what kind of window managers do you guys use? Maybe they force some sort of like compositing or something. I don't know. KDE. It's very strange that I cannot even show you. That's what's weird about that. Like OBS doesn't want to show you at all. I wonder if I can maybe capture. All right, so wait a second. Can I actually make this entire thing go back? Let me see. Int rect dx1y, right? So something like this, and this one is going to be rect dx y. All right, so I was able to get more visible flickering by setting to weird FPS 83 instead of 120. That is actually very interesting. Maybe this is something that you can try. Okay, 83. I still can't see that on OBS at least. Oh, and it starts to do this thing. Yeah, because it doesn't clean the area in the. All right. So if rect x is greater, then actually rect x plus rect width is greater than width, right? We can try to do something like rect x minus 1, right? And also maybe rect x is less. Yeah, you actually have to do that slightly differently, right? You actually have to do that slightly differently. We need to do int, right? So this is going to be the new, and the new essentially is that one. Like this, right? Like this. So this is the new one. So this is the next one. And if rect and x is less than 0, less or equal maybe than 0, and because of that, maybe I want to actually start around 1, like 10, 10, right? And rect and x. I wonder what affects this entire stuff, but anyway, rect. Wait. Let's actually just make a small break. Let's make a small break, and after the break we're gonna continue. I just need to make some sort of animation in there. All right, let's continue. So what I want to do in here, if the new value is less or equal than 0, or the new value plus rect width, right, plus rect width. Actually, maybe it has to be minus rect width, right? So this is the value. No, plus rect width is greater or equal to the width of the whole thing. Right, what we have to do instead, we have to change this thing to be like in the opposite direction. Otherwise, I'm going to be assigning rect x to the new one. Right, so this is basically the idiom that I want to actually pursue. And maybe we're going to repeat the same stuff for the y, and the easiest way to do that is going to be to just query replace x with y, and also query replace width with height. Right, so this is what we're going to have in here. So that will make the rectangle bounce around, hopefully. We'll see how it goes. So yusu, and I did a fucky wacky, and oopsie doopsie. Why it didn't work? Did I recompile the entire thing? Yes, I did in fact recompile. Do I have to do minus in here? It feels like, why is this minus exactly? Should actually make it a little bit faster. Am I an idiot? I feel like I'm an idiot. I feel like I'm an idiot. Why am I such an idiot? Where did I make a mistake? It's something super obvious, and I really don't see that. I really don't see that. So this is the new thing. This is the new thing. All right. And if it's less than 0, and the point, if I sort of extend it to plus rect width, and if it's greater or equal than the width of the whole thing, oh, it's the other way. Well, then I have to modify the direction thingy, and I'm not modifying the actual thing in here. Okay, this has to be plus. This just has to be plus. Oh, why do I have to be stuck on such a simple thing right away? What the fuck? Oh, I hate it when it happens. I really hate it. Yep, it doesn't want to work. Like it just doesn't want to work. So what if we go in the opposite direction, right? So if it's going to be negative, right? And it literally ignores everything. It literally ignores everything. It's almost like I'm not even recompiling. But I do recompile. Let's debug this thing. I don't know, because like I have no choice. So let's go to the debugger, right? So this is going to be GDB. So this is going to be God GDB, and it's something super dumb. It's something super dumb. Like I'm pretty sure. Right. So let's actually go down there. Right. So we have that. Right, and maybe I'm gonna also display rect x, then display rect y, then display dx, then dy. Right, so, and let's actually go. Okay, go away. All right, so okay, so if I print rect and x, right, rect and x, maybe I want to even display this entire thing. Right, we're going to be displaying this entire thing. Right, and it became that, and then if I display rect and y, right, so now I can see what's going on in here. Okay, cool. Oh, and now I have to wait. Oh, and now it's handling the events. So can I break at particular point in here? So God break, right? Can I break here and just continue until it goes there? Right, so that does that. and then we reassign this entire thing in here, and as you can see, it just like goes there. Okay, let's continue, and maybe I can continue up until it actually goes to like 1, right? So, and let's actually see what's gonna happen, right? So in here, we set it back to 0, right? Then we set it back to 0. Oh. So it skips it, right? It skips it. So if I understand correctly now, it will, yeah, on the next iteration, essentially what it will do, yeah, it will never flip anything. Why did I choose such a difficult logic? Okay. So rect x plus... Or, holy fucking shit, okay, I see. So we fixed it. Okay. As I told you that it's something super dumb. Right, it is in fact something super dumb. Okay, so now it is working and it's bouncing off. So, cool. It is in fact working now. That is pretty neat. So, all right. So you make a small mistake. And what's interesting is that quite often you get yourself into such a mental state where this is something that you would not even look into, right? So you would just assume that this operator is correct, and it will never occur to you. Well, at least to me. Maybe I'm the only person who's actually dealing with these kind of problems, right? It would never occur to you that, oh, okay, the operator is wrong. It's just because your brain keeps skipping over that operator, right? So your brain keeps skipping over. Did you ever had such situations? Because I have it like quite often. Maybe because I'm dumb again. So maybe it's like it's not relatable experience for a lot of people because everyone is super smart. But for me, it is quite often like that, right? So you get into such a state where your brain keeps skipping over such a simple thing. Debugger actually helps, right? Debugger actually helps because it sort of forces you to step through each individual thing and observe the effects. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Oh, people in the chat say that you also do have this kind of situation. Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? So what's interesting is that if you are a third person, right, if you're looking at somebody else writing code, you can always notice that. But if you are first person writing that, it's almost like impossible for you to notice this thing because you're in a different mental state, so to speak, right? So in a sort of mental different state. So yeah, weird. And what's funny is that debugger really helps you to get out of that mental state. So debugger sort of serves as the third person that looks at your code, without any prejudice and just like executes it, right? So, yeah. All right, so, and quite often when I get into such a state, I just like bust out the debugger and just like step one by one, and then I can see the error. All right, so maybe I want to have like several of these rectangles, right? If you know what I'm talking about, several of them. If we have several of them, maybe we can finally get some sort of a flickering visible. Oh, no, I forgot what I wanted to do. So the reason why I was working on this animation is because I wanted the animation to loop, so I don't have to restart the application to make the rectangle visible, right? So let's just keep it in here, right? And now I'm going to try to add this thing as a window in OBS, if you know what I'm talking about, right? So I'm going to actually bring the OBS in here, right? So maybe I'm going to put it like that. I'm not sure if it's a good idea. So just a second. What my neighbors are doing, I don't know. To screen capture. This is not a real screen capture. Scene window capture, right? So I'm trying to capture a window, and the window I want to capture is error. There we go. That's a pretty cool. swap red and blue. You know what's funny? You know, oh. That is very fucking cool. Lock XR when capturing. Alright, so this is what I wanted to do essentially. Okay, so you can see shit now. You know what's funny? As I captured this window, right? As I captured this window, so the window is now captured, it doesn't flicker on for me anymore. It just doesn't flicker because something within OBS forces the sort of frame rate to synchronize with the monitor or whatnot, right? And I suppose as soon as I close this entire thing, I'm gonna remove this thing. It starts flickering. This is so amazing. I love that. So yeah, it starts flickering for me, and I can't even show you that. Can I? Can I actually show you that? I wonder if I can just go ahead and show you the screen or something. I don't know, with the webcam, right? So we're gonna go to here, right? So, and I'm gonna just show you the screen, and you can clearly see that it's freaking flickering. This is what I've been seeing the entire time. Guys, I'm not crazy. I'm not fucking crazy. I'm joking. So yeah, here's the flickering. Right, so and yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so that was the thing, and it doesn't flicker for you. Legendary room tour, yeah, legendary room tour. So as you can see, it is flickering for me. Let's actually try to repeat the experiment with the capture. I'm going to show you. I think it's kind of interesting because I do really want to go that route. Right, so this is going to be an error. Right, there we go. So this is like a swap red and blue. I wonder if I can quickly... Oh my god, this is annoying as fuck. Why are you so annoying? Just a second. Software, I hate software. Okay, window, make source visible, don't make it visible. Okay, swap and capture and so I can enable and disable it, enable and disable it. So, and what's funny is that, why don't you have vsync enabled anyway? Because it's off topic, actually. Whether I use vsync or not is irrelevant to the discussion, actually. Go figure. Thank you so much for Twitch Prime subscription. So what's interesting is that no matter if I hide this thing or not hide this thing, it keeps synchronizing it. Okay, so what I want to show you now is that if I capture this window, you can clearly see that there is no flickering anymore, right? That's what I wanted to show you. That's why it was so difficult for me to demonstrate, right, that it is flickering for me, actually. So, yep, that was really interesting, I suppose. So OBS kind of forces you to like vsync or something. Yeah. So maybe this is what we're going to be using here today to sort of like demonstrate, that the flickering is actually fixed or not, right? So, and this is probably something with my configuration, but here's the interesting thing. Your user may have such configuration and you'll have to deal with that somehow. So, isso, kawaii freaking this. Okay, so let's commit whatever we have already in here. Make rect bounce of the corner of the sides, I suppose, right? Make it bounce off of the sides. So the first technique that we're gonna try to do right now is maybe back buffer with pix map. I think that one would be interesting, right? So and in here, what we want to do, we want to create sort of like a back buffer pix map. You know what? So maybe we could try to just slap double buffer and extension first, because it looks like it's super easy to do that, right? We already tried double buffer and extension, and yeah, so since it's easier to enable that, let's just go ahead and do that. So the first thing we're gonna try is xdbe, right? So, and I'm going to go to wank tiles, right? So this is going to be wank tiles, src main.c, right? src main.c, xdbe, where is that? We're going to be querying the extension, right? We're going to be querying the extension, and we're going to be enabling the extension in here. There we go. So, and all right, so we have that thing in here, and the rest of the stuff, we need to create the back buffer into which we're going to be drawing shit, right? So, and now, when I'm rendering shit, right, I'm rendering it into window, and instead of window, I'm going to put a back buffer. What my neighbors are doing, I don't fucking know. All right, so, and if I go ahead and do that, xdbe, so I have to actually enable something like extensions, xdbe, right, xdbe, and so this one is a window, so that means we have to create the back buffer after we created the window. That makes sense to me. And there we go. As you can see, we don't have anything because we don't swap that buffer yet. We don't swap it. Swap, and let's just go ahead and do that. So this is how we're going to be swapping it. So after we render this entire thing, I'm going to just do, and that swaps the buffer, hopefully. And that is very cool. So apparently I did a fucky wacky, uvu, and oopsie doopsie. I supposed to be cleaning the back buffer as well. Supposed to be cleaning, and something went absolutely wrong. And I wonder what. Xclear area, invalid window parameter. Okay, that's pretty cool. But what if I don't clean anything? Okay, so if I don't clean anything, it is totally fine. Apparently I cannot clear this shit. Apparently I cannot. You know what? Isn't it flickering for you because of xclear? Maybe xclear area makes it so. Here's an interesting thing. Why can't I clear the entire thing? So when I'm allocating the back buffer, I'm allocating it for a window. So I don't know. Yeah. Can't clear it. It's just like, yeah. Bad window, you cannot clear that entire thing. But I suppose one of the things we can do, we can fill the rectangle with a different color, but we'll have to set the foreground like a different foreground all the time. Okay, so I can do something like that. So the foreground here is going to be 0, and I'm setting like 0, 0, 0, 0 width and height, right? So it's going to be width and height. And then in here, I'm going to be setting x ff 0, 0, 0. Is it too much? 1, 1, 1, 1. There we go. And let me see. So this is one of the things we can do, right, for cleaning everything up, and it actually works. You know what's funny? It doesn't flicker. Doesn't flicker. And now I want to check how it's gonna work without the double buffering if I just do window. Oh shit. You know what's funny? You can't even see it at all. All right. Huh. So let me remove everything related to double buffering. Where is the back buffer? Where is that thing? And where is that thing? There we go. So we can try to do that. Oh yeah, double buffering was actually, yeah. So this thing does make a difference. So still can't see it. Oh yeah. So this is going to be X clear. I wish I could just demonstrate you. I really wish I could, but I just cannot do that. Since I don't use clear anymore, maybe if I do a window captcha and just do something like this and error, and it automatically actually locks everything, and now it does not flicker anymore. It's so annoying. How can I demonstrate the problem? And it's just so weird. Ah, this is annoying. This is really, really annoying. Software is annoying. Software is really, really annoying. Something works, something doesn't work sometimes. It's just like, oh boy. Okay. I need to buy a second cam for graphics development. Yeah, because what's funny is that I can clearly see the problem, and enabling double buffering clearly just solves it to me. But I cannot show that to you. I just cannot show it because OBS keep messing things up, and I just like, yeah, I cannot show you. This is so frustrating. It is extremely frustrating, and I'm not even sure. Maybe there is some settings in OBS that I can say I can put there, but I'm already streaming, so I cannot change settings at all. So it is really, really frustrating. So yeah, so maybe we can think about different stuff. I wanted to introduce some sort of like configuration, compile time configuration that lets you choose the methods, right? So you could say something like make file, and then you could do -d, right? -d, and that is going to be like no double buffer, no db, right? And maybe something like pixmap. It would be kind of interesting. So double buffer could be 0, 0 could be no, 1 could be xdbe, 2 could be pixmap, 3 could be ximage, and you could choose like between them. That would be actually kind of nice. So this is what I wanted to implement in here. Streaming in retro style by capturing via webcam. I remember that I had a small stand for my webcam. I'm not sure if I brought it with me when I actually changed the apartment. I don't quite remember. So maybe I could do something about that. Oh yeah, I do have it. I still, in fact, do have it. So this is how it looks like. There we go. So maybe I can actually bring it in here. So I can probably actually use this small camera stand. You can actually screw the camera on top of this thing, right? Then I can try to show you this stuff. So for now, I'm gonna actually disable the camera super quick. Yeah, because I need to screw it on. I need to screw it on. Just a second, and this is going to be very interesting. All right. This is actually kind of funny, not gonna lie. I really like that. So you would be able to kind of see what I'm seeing, which is super cool. Right, so... shit, fuck. Shit, fuck, damn! Right, so can you see shit? I'm not sure if you can, but this is very inconvenient. Oh my god, this is super bad. And you cannot see shit in this mist, so I have to do that on a different angle. Right. So yes, go away, freaking this. Okay, so that's the programming stream for you. Now that's the science and technology stream that you subscribed for, didn't you? So I can remove this thing because I don't need it anymore, right? I wonder if we can do something like this, and actually, yeah, boy, mods, timeout this person, please. 2 hours timeout. Thank you so much. All right. What do we have in here? This is not particularly convenient for me as well. Why is the screen so dirty? Because I'm a dirty nerd. That's why. If somebody subscribes, I'm gonna actually wipe it. So there's a lot of dust in here, so you're not supposed to see all of this shit. Okay, so here are the problems that I have, right? So if I run this entire thing... Wait, can you see it flickering even? What the fuck? Why can't you see it flickering? Can you? Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah, you have to look at it at a particular angle. Yeah, you have to... God damn it. Right. So here is the thing. So this is flickering. And now, if I do the other thing, so this is going to be something like, we're going to be enabling the extensions, right? So we're enabling the extensions, we're creating the back buffer. Somebody subscribed, so I have to, you know, clean my screen now. Shit. Just a second. I'm going to enable the back buffer, and I'm going to bring some paper towels, and I'm just going to clean everything. Okay, so here is that. So we're swapping everything around. And we're going to be doing that for the back buffer, right? So as you can see, I just enabled the back buffer, and now there is no flickering, right? So that's the only thing I wanted to demonstrate in here, right? So we're using like double buffering extension, and it's not a problem anymore. So that's kind of cool, I guess, right? So, and the only way I could demonstrate that is by actually using the webcam, because otherwise you won't be able to see that, because there is no difference in here, right? So there's no difference in here. So the only difference you can see, I can even actually show you something. So let's actually go back to no double buffering extension, right? So you can't see shit in this mist, right? You can't see shit. You think it's not flickering, but now I switch to here, right? And it is flickering, right? It is flickering. Right, and then I switch here and it is not flickering, right? So that's like sort of the difference between this kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. So yeah, people are donating. So somebody donated like $1 and I cannot see shit yet. Just a second. I didn't know to answer my questions. I need to donate. Sorry. I have a question. Can you help me? I want to make a search bar that every time I type a keyword, it searches in other websites for that specific keyword. How can I do that? I mean, which, and the message has ended here. I've no idea. So just a second. First, I need to address the wiping the screen. But yeah, I'm gonna get to your donation pretty soon. Alrighty, just a second. Control F. People are suggesting to use Control F. That's actually looks like a reasonable suggestion. So I don't know. All right. So here's me. So I probably need to clean my screen just a second, so I'm gonna bring some paper towels. Just a second. So I'm gonna wipe my screen super quick because it is in fact very dirty. All right. So is it gonna look better? I have no idea if it's gonna look better. If it's gonna be even visible. Right. This poor screen will be white with toilet paper. No, it's actually just like a paper towels, napkins, or whatever the fuck they are. So let's take a look. Does it look better? I think it looks better a little bit. Just a little bit. I just like quickly wiped it up. Nothing particularly special. For anything particularly special, you will need to donate more, I'm sorry. So anyway, now, how do you write? Okay, so let's actually address your question because you donated that, right? I need to then, I want to make a search bar that every time I type a word, it searches in other websites for that specific keyword. How can I do that? I mean, well, I mean, to do that, like there is one company that is kind of doing that on a daily basis, right? That company is called google.com, right? So that's the company that's actually developing exactly the thing that you want to build every day. So if you take a look, let's actually take a look at the Google on the Wikipedia, right? Right. So to build such a website, right, you need a multi-billion-dollar corporation. So yeah, and they've been doing that since 1998, and they spent shit ton of money on building that thing. More than $1, by the way. It's like astronomically more than $1. And they've been doing that for what's that? For almost 20 years. Yeah, right. So they're trying to do that for almost 20 years, and it still doesn't really work that well, to be fair. So you see, you're trying to solve a very, very difficult problem that a lot of like tens of thousands of very smart engineers still trying to properly solve for 20 years, and they spend billions of dollars on doing that. And you're asking me that question with $1. So I think you need to refine your requirements. I think the problem with your requirements is that they're very, very generic. They're very, very, very generic, and to actually solve such a very generic requirements, you need a lot of resources. So what I would suggest to you is to actually refine your requirements and actually maybe narrow them down a little bit, right? Make them more simpler, and then maybe you'll be able to come up with a reasonable solution. So yeah. So I guess the problem with that is that your requirements are too broad. Like it's not clear what you mean, right? You have to be more specific. That's the main problem in here, right? You see what I'm talking about? Because Google is trying to do whatever you're just saying. They're trying to do that, but they spend shit ton of money, and a lot of very smart and talented engineers are doing that every day. And it's still kind of crappy, and it's still kind of meh. So I think you need to reconsider your requirements. You know what I'm talking about? So yeah. So yeah, that's everything I have to say to you. I'm definitely not as smart as an average Google engineer, so I definitely won't be able to answer your question. I'm really sorry about that. Thank you for $1, by the way. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Another day, another door. That's what we say in Black Mesa. Right. All right. So I already streamed for like 2 hours. So let's actually finish this entire thing, I suppose. Let's actually finish. And maybe we need to come up with the name for this sort of parameter. So maybe this is going to be called dB, but I don't really want to call it dB. Good value for $1. I guess so. Like I tried to do my best for $1. So you cannot answer this question for $1, but at least you can be entertaining. So yeah, and I provided you entertainment for $1, I suppose. I don't know. I tried my best. Anyway. So double, let's call it dB, I suppose. It's going to be dB. And in here, we can have maybe different like dB approaches, right? So this is going to be dB, no dB. Let's call it no dB. This is going to be 0. Then we're going to have x dBE. dB, maybe none. dB x dBE. This is going to be 1, and another one is going to be x image, which is going to be 2, and another one is going to be pixmap, right? Another one is going to be pixmap. Database, yeah. It's a database. So how do we want to do that? I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. So maybe what we want to do in here, we want to sort of abstract away two operations, right? We want to abstract away the operation of drawing, of cleaning the screen and drawing a rectangle on that screen, and also swapping the buffers. So that's what we want to do. We want to abstract away this kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and do that. So maybe we're going to have operations that like this. Clear screen, so this is going to be just clear screen. Then fill rect, right? So we're going to have a fill rect, which is going to accept x, y, w, h, right? So something like this. And then swap buffers, right? So this is basically the interface we're dealing with. Right, and depending on this interface, we're going to do different things. So, interestingly enough, we need to... Just a second. I've been educated. You deserve at least $1 more. Donated by Chom. Thank you so much for $1, and I'm really glad to provide some educational value. So, yeah. I have a principle, by the way. People look at how I answer the questions on the stream and they assume that I always answer like with a trolling or something like that. But I have a principle, right? So if somebody donates a question, like if somebody's actually putting their money into their question, I at least try to answer that in a legit manner. Right. In case of the first question with $1, I at least try to provide like an actual criticism of their question. And my main criticism of that question is that the requirements are too broad. And I do believe that it's a valid criticism of that question because the requirements are in fact too broad, so broad that you need a whole multi-dollar corporation to solve them. So the first step in solving that problem would be reconsider your requirements and make them more specific. So, and I do think it's a valuable advice because in that specific situation, I would do that. Right, that's the first thing I would do. I would simplify the requirements. So you see, I'm not trying to troll people, right? So, but there's too many questions. A lot of people trying to ask me too many questions, and I just don't have resources to do that. But if you actually ask with money, I will at least put an effort for that money to answer that question legit. So that's what I want to try to get across. What if someone gives a stupid question with $1? I will try to explain what's the problem with that question. I think that's precisely what I did. So I'll try to tell what's the problem with that question and how to ask a better question. So that's what I would do, because software development is all about asking the right question, right? So yeah, we have another donation. Just a second. Very wise. Thank you, Tsoding Senpai. You're welcome. Thank you so much, Lori Master, for $1.69 dollars. Thank you so much. So yeah, thank you so much for all the donations. I really appreciate them. So yeah, if you really want like a good answer, like if you want to force me to answer like legit, donate like $1, $2 or something, and I'll put an effort into actually answering that. So because I need to pay my bills, I'm sorry, nothing personal. I don't even make that much money from the streaming. That's the problem. It's not like I'm super greedy. It's just like I need to pay my bills. Anyways, all right. So what are we doing here? So what's interesting is that depending on the double buffering technique, we'll need to have different contexts into which we're rendering thing. So maybe we would have something like a structure context, right? So a structure context. And so that context is going to have different things depending on the double buffering technique we have, right? So in case of no double buffering, it's going to be a window, and in case of XDBE, it's going to be a pointer to like a back buffer thingy in here. And yeah, what's interesting is that it also will require different initialization, right? So, and I think this is precisely what we can do. We can do something like init db. Okay, so let's actually call this entire thing db. Then here we can do something like db clear, right? So this is db clear, and it will accept the db, then db fill rect, db, and then db swap buffers, db. Okay, so we have that, and another thing I want to have in here is db init. Right, so this is going to be initializing this entire stuff. And I suppose it's also need to accept the display and the window for which we're going to be doing all of that, right? So this is going to be the window, right? And you're supposed to implement this entire stuff, right? You're supposed to implement this entire thing. So, and I'm thinking is that we could split different double buffering implementations into separate files, right? So this is going to be dbnone.c, right, something like this, and we're going to put it in here, right? So, and depending on the current db, right? So if db is equal db none, right? If it's db none, we're going to include db none.c, db none.c. Otherwise, we're going to error saying how to say that? Not implemented yet. Not implemented to double buffering approach. Unsupported double buffering approach. So this can be end if. There we go. And if. Okay, go. Okay, go. So, and in case of a no double buffering, right? In case of a no double buffering, I suppose we just need to store the window, right? And essentially we're gonna say, just save that window in the context, right? So just save that window. When we wanna clear the whole thing, I'm gonna be doing something like xclear area. I think that's what it's called. It's called xclear area. And that's what we're going to be using in here. So this is the display. Maybe I also want to save the display in here, right? So I'm saving the display. So, and then the window that we're cleaning, and we're cleaning the whole thing. Exposures, I suppose we're not going to be sending any exposures things, but I also need to have a width and height of the window. And the question is, where can I get like a width and height? I suppose I can get it from the window attributes, but I'm not quite sure. So I'm going to basically assume that width and height are global constants that are available to you all the time. which means I have to maybe put this entire stuff below where we define them, like so. Below where we define them. Okay, so then the next one is going to be fill rect. All right, and the fill rect is going to be basically x set foreground, and when I set the foreground, I provide the display, right? So this is going to be the display. Oh, we also need to create the GC, and I wonder where we're going to be creating the GC. That's actually very interesting. Do I want to create the GC in here or in a different place? So create GC. I might as well actually do that inside of the double buffering technique. I think it does make sense. Right, so this is going to be just GC, right? And here we're going to do db GC, and we're just reusing this entire thing. Did we F? I didn't think we F'd. So display, and then I also have to do something like db GC, set foreground, and then I have to provide the color, right? FF0000. There we go. So we set the foreground, and then I need to fill the rectangle. Right, I need to fill the rectangle. db. So I'm providing all of that stuff in here. db x, y, width, and height. So this is how we do that. So, and swapping the buffers does not exist, right? It's not going to be doing anything. I can just define swap buffers as something that is not existent at all. Right, so that's what we have in here, right? So this is basically a simple no double buffering approach. Simple no double buffering. And now, if I recompile the entire stuff, so what do we have in here? Display has incomplete type. This is kind of weird because I suppose it has to be a pointer, right? So if I do display, yeah, it has to be a pointer. Okay, makes sense. Anything else? Okay, we need to start integrating this entire shit. That's what we need to start doing, right? So the first thing I want to do is I want to initialize everything, right? So I'm going to be allocating the DB structure on the stack, right? And maybe I'm going to even zero initialize it just in case. Then I establish the connection, and then I do DB init, provide a pointer to DB, and also display and window. Right, there we go. I initialized the double buffering context and whatnot, right? So the next thing we're going to be doing is I need to clean db clear, right? I clear the whole area, right? And then I db fill rect, then it's going to be rect x, rect y, rect width, rect height, right? And then we're going to remove this entire thing, and after that I'm going to do db swap buffers, providing the pointer to the entire thing, and there we go. So as you can see, our entire code doesn't even care what kind of approach to the double buffering we're using, right? It just calls these abstract functions, and depending on the compilation flags, it's going to be a different thing. Right now, it's like literally no double buffering, right? So, okay, so let's try to recompile the entire thing in a statement with no effect. An expansion of macro. Oh shit, okay. I think we have to call it like db implementation. Okay, I think it's a db implementation, right? And here in the make file, we can say db implementation, something like this. All right. So, and what else do we have in here? Display has to be a pointer. Anything else? Semicolons, and there we go. Everything seems to be working. Cool. Everything seems to be working, everything seems to be working. On top of that, we can define something like db implementation name, and we can say like something like none. And this is basically what each individual like unit.c file has to provide for different double buffering implementations, right? It will also provide the name, the structure. It's supposed to be opaque. You're not supposed to know anything, and implementation for this like basic interface, right? Okay, and then here we can actually go ahead and say something like printf double buffering implementation, and this one is going to be db implementation name, and this one is going to be a new line. There we go. And if you take a look at this thing, you see it says none. Okay, so the next thing we want to do, we want to actually you know, have XDBE one, so the one that provided by this extension. Okay, let's do something like this. Else if db implementation equal db xdbe, right, we have to include db xdbe .c. There we go. So right now nothing breaks. If we switch to this thing, we're starting to have problems. You see, we don't have a file xdbe. So let's actually quickly create such file, right? So this is going to be db_xdbe.c, and I'm going to just save that. And the next problem we have is no name. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the name for this implementation. So this one is going to be simply xdbe. That's what we implemented in here. Okay, the next problem here is we don't have a you know, db structure defined, right? So let's actually quickly define that. Struct db. All right. So the next one, type def struct, has no members. We'll need at least the display and window. I might as well actually put them in here just in case, right? So in the next problem, we don't have a db initialization. Okay. And let's go. So init, and we're gonna accept the pointer to this thing. So this is gonna be the display, this is gonna be the window, and there we go. Okay, so in here we're gonna be just assigning the display and the window to the original thing. But on top of that, we'll need to allocate the back buffer. Before we're going to do that, I suppose we'll need to check for the double buffering extension, right? So we'll need to check for the double buffering extension. So wang tiles src main.c xdbe. Yeah, so we're creating the extension. So this is what we're going to be doing in here, right? Just in case. We need to make sure that it exists. Right, after that, the next thing is to create a back buffer, right? We need to create a back buffer, and we're going to store that back buffer in the context itself. You see, that's why I have this macros, right? Because depending on the approach, you need different things that you need to store in the context. So I abstracted that away, right? So, and in here, I'm going to just do db back buffer, and there we go. So we initialized the xdb thingy. Right, let's try to recompile the entire thing. db clear. Okay, this one is very interesting. Right, because as we already discovered, for whatever reason, you cannot use clear, x area clear on the back buffer. You just cannot do that, and I don't know why. Maybe you need to enable something to be able to do that, but it just doesn't work. So because of that, the clear is going to be completely different. Right, so this is going to be db, and let's actually go ahead and try to do the clear on the back buffer and see how it fails. So we're going to be doing that on the back buffer, right? So here's the back buffer. Okay, so, and then I'm going to be doing that. So the next thing we need to have a fill rect. Right, so I'm gonna go to the non-implementation, fill rect, and I'm gonna just copy paste this entire thing. Right, so instead of using the window, right, instead of using the window, we have to use the back buffer. And here is a very interesting thing. We need to have the graphical context as well in here, right? We need to have a graphical context. So let's go ahead and also create the graphical context. So let me see. So we're going to be doing it like that. Right. Yep. So now we have a graphical context, and I think I'm going to even put it in the order in which I'm initializing all of that. And swap buffers. Okay, so swap buffers is quite important because now we finally do have it. Right, so and to swap the buffers, we have to do that weird trick. Okay, so window, it's a swap window, and I'm going to be providing this entire thing. Okay, is it going to be compiling? Is it going to compile? Almost. almost compiling, by the way. And as you can see, it's actually crashing, saying that you cannot do xclear area on the back buffer created by XDB extension. I have no idea why, but what we opted to is basically setting the foreground to black, right? So we're just setting it to black, and we fill the entire area with that just color, right, in the back buffer. Fill rectangle, and it's going to be basically 0, 0, width, and height. There we go. So, and it seems to be working, and as you can see, it says double buffering implementation XDBE, right? And this entire architecture allows me now, right, it allows me now to change the DB implementation, and now it is using DB implementation none, right? And it's actually calling to a completely different functions. You see, I'm programming in, this is the wrong code, by the way. I'm programming in pure C, but I'm sort of imitating interfaces in a compile time, by the way. So the interface in here is basically a bunch of functions and macros. First is a macro, the name, then the structure, and these functions. And depending on the implementation, I basically include different files, right? So, and what files are included depends on the compile time, you know, compile time parameters. And this code doesn't even care. The code only knows about the interface, right? And that's what allows me to swap out different files and different implementations. So this entire thing is well abstracted, right? And now I can go ahead and implement more of different, you know, double buffering approaches. Isn't that cool? I think it's actually pretty cool. So it's what makes it cool is that you can achieve such a level of, you know, abstraction. It's actually very powerful level of abstractions in such a simple language, right? So it's quite amazing that you can do that in C, right? Isn't that cool? Polymorphism, I don't know, polymorphism usually refers to something runtime-ish, if you know what I'm talking about. This is a compile time, so I suppose in software industry we call it ad hoc polymorphism, right? Ad hoc polymorphism, but it's still polymorphism, right? So ad hoc polymorphism, yeah. It's the kind of polymorphism in which polymorphism can be applied to arguments of different types because polymorphism can be denoted a number of distinct potentially, well, I mean, you always have to be a smartass about that, right? Anyway, so so basically, yeah, there are two kinds of dispatching between different implementations of functions: runtime dispatching and compile time dispatching. Right, so here we have a compile time dispatching, but it's just like, it's basically arguing about the naming, so it doesn't really matter. Right. All right. So maybe I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So, and let's go ahead. Abstract away different double buffering implementations. Okay, I'm gonna push that right into the repo. So I suppose I want to make a small break, right? I suppose I want to make a small break and yeah, make a cup of tea. And after that, we're going to implement the rest two of the double buffering approaches, right? And after that, I suppose we're going to call it a day, right? So yeah. So I think here we're going to create like some sort of like a catalog of different ways you can do double buffering if you need to. Apparently, not quite often you need to do that, right? Because you can configure your X11 to actually vsync properly, and it's not like a problem in modern computers. But I have a potato laptop, and your customer can also have a potato laptop, right? So you need to be aware of the situation when your application may start flickering if you're developing a simple game. To be fair, it's kind of difficult to imagine making a simple game in 2021 that doesn't use something like OpenGL, and a lot of libraries that you're going to use for OpenGL are going to take care of that for you anyway, but maybe it is useful for educational purposes. I don't know. Also, by the way, I just realized that I don't have the camera blocker set up. right? Because we were messing with the camera. So I'm gonna just set it up super quick here. And hopefully, yeah, there we go. So now it properly blocks everything. All right, so I suppose we're gonna make a small break. I'm gonna refill my cup of tea. And after that, we're gonna continue implementing shit, I suppose. All right, so let's implement the rest of the double buffering implementations. So we're gonna start with, I think the next one is gonna be PixMap because it's a little bit easier to implement. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So this is gonna be a libdb PixMap. It actually has to be impl, right? So this is gonna be impl db PixMap. There we go, and we're going to include db PixMap.c. There we go. Let's actually start by trying to compile. So we're essentially using compiler assisted refactoring right now. Isn't that cool? I think it's actually pretty cool. Right, so that's very strange. Today is a Saturday, right? So if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, today is a Saturday. Okay, so that explains a lot. Okay, so we're using compiler assisted refactoring to tell us what kind of things we need to implement. Right, so I'm going to be saying that the implementation I want in here is going to be equal to 2, right? And it will tell me probably that this one is not supported. Okay, PixMap has to be something like this. Right, okay, so as you can see, we don't have such file. db PixMap.c, I'm going to create such file. So what's the next problem? We don't have db implementation name. Right, so let's actually define this entire thing. Right, let's define it. And we're going to be doing something like PixMap. Right, so this is a PixMap. What's the next thing we need? We need the data structure for the database. Not the database, but double buffering. Even I confuse the DB. My brain keeps thinking that it's a database, right? But it's in fact double buffering, unfortunately. So in here we'll probably need things like display and window. So I'm gonna bring them here, and also probably GC. So as you can see, we're starting to see that there is a lot of repetition between those things, but it's not always gonna be like that. We'll see what kind of things are like shared. And I don't think it matters to actually try to reduce the amount of duplicate. If the structures share some stuff, I don't think it's that important, right? Because it may only introduce like a very complicated code. So I don't think we need to worry about it too much. All right. So now what we need to do in here, we need to assign the display and assign the value, right? So it's going to be Windows and the display. And we also need to create the garbage collector, not garbage collector, but the GC, I suppose, the graphical context. God damn it, there's at least two confusions, right? DB and GC. And my brain keeps thinking that DB stands for database and GC stands for garbage collector. But in this case, it means double buffering in graphical context. Oh, it's so frustrating. Anyway, XDBE. All right, so how do we create that? We need to create this thing, and there we go. So we have a garbage collector. So what's going to be the next thing we need to allocate in here? DB clear. So this one is going to be just cleaning the back buffer. So here's an interesting thing. The PixMap approach just uses something called PixMap as a back buffer, right? And you can create a PixMap like so, right? So yeah, essentially you just can provide display and the drawable for which you want to create the PixMap, and width and height and the depth. Right, the interesting thing about PixMap is that it's a drawing area that is located on the X11 server side. It's like invisible window into which you can draw things, and the things you can draw into it, they're not going to be visible, right? They're never going to be visible. But there is also operation XCopyArea, right? XCopyArea that copies the area of one drawable into another one. And that's the technique that people used before, I suppose, X double buffering extension to imitate double buffering, right? So, and that's basically how it's done. You basically allocate like a PixMap and you use it as a back buffer. But I suppose the double buffering extension just provides you more flexibility on you know, flipping the buffers. As we already learned, there's different like idioms, right? So copy, discard, flip, or something like that. So it just gives you more control. This kind of thing doesn't really give you that much control, right? It just like yeah, so it's a higher level than, I suppose, XDB extension, right? That's what it is, isn't it? All right, so, and first thing we need to do, we need to create the pix map, right? We need to create a pix map. So let's go ahead and do that. And I suppose we're going to be storing this thing in here, back buffer, right? So here we're going to have display, window, and the size of this entire thing is going to be width and height, and the depth, I suppose, is going to be 24. Right, db back buffer, right? And I'm going to be just assigning this stuff like that. And if we want to clean, I suppose we're going to be using clear area, but we're going to be cleaning the pix map area, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll have to provide the display and then the window, and we're not gonna send any exposure events, right? Okay, so the next thing we need to do, we need to fill the rectangle, right? We need to fill the rectangle. db, so this one is going to be x, and then y, x and y, width and height, right? So, and essentially, I suppose we need to do set foreground. So this is going to be the display. I keep forgetting foreground. What does it accept? It accepts GC, so we have to do GC, and we're going to do the red one. So, and then we need to fill the rectangle, fill rect, right? And we're going to be filling it into the back buffer. Yeah, it's pretty much the same code, it's just like for the pix map. Okay, unused variable x and y. Okay, so this has to be x, y, width and height. So this one is going to be this, and this is going to be that. And what else do we have in here? So the last thing we need to do swap the buffers, right? Swap the buffers. And swapping the buffers in case of a pix map is essentially using x copy area to copy area of the back buffer into the window, right? So that's basically what we need to do in here. So this is going to be the display. The source is going to be the back buffer, right? So that's the back buffer source. The destination is going to be the window, right? We're going to be using the graphical context that we created ourselves. The source coordinates are going to be essentially 0, 0. Width and height is the width and height of the window, and destination is also 0, 0, essentially. Yeah, that's basically going to be the swap buffers, right? We're basically copying the stuff you wrote into the back buffer into the window. So that's how you sort of imitate without the double buffering extension. Okay, and it doesn't work. Nice, and it's flickering like crazy. I love that. You cannot see that, but it is in fact flickering. This is actually kind of funny. I wonder why, and it actually feels, yeah. Clear area. Oh, because we're cleaning the window and we are not cleaning the back buffer. We're supposed to be cleaning the back buffer. Okay, so that's the mistake I've made. And yeah, apparently you cannot clear. Okay, this is very interesting. You can't clean the pix map as well. Maybe I should read more about xClear area, because maybe you cannot clear the things that are you know, invisible, right? So function paints a rectangle area in the specified window. Oh, I see. There is a hierarchy of different objects in X11, right? So window, right. So essentially there's an interface, let's actually do Java. Where's Java? Come on. Drawable, right? There's an interface drawable, and essentially window extends drawable, right? And there's a lot of things like pixmap also extends drawable, and I suppose like xdbe back buffer also extends drawable, right? And there are a lot of functions like xcopy area that if I take a look at the xcopy area, they accept the drawable, right? So xcopy area, copy area accepts. Why are you annoying? Stop software, stop being annoying, stupid annoying software. Okay, so the copy area accepts drawable as like src and dst, but for whatever reason clear area only accepts the window, right? So you can only clear the window, but you can't clear the drawable. You see what I'm talking about? Right, so because like X11 defines this interfaces, hierarchies, and so on and so forth. So you cannot just clear the drawable, you can only clear the window, and that's why I was not able to do that with pixmap and xdb back buffer. Does it make sense? So okay. So swap buffers. So here what we'll have to do, we'll have to just fill the rectangle. And what's funny is that fill the rectangle accepts drawable. Why specifically clear area accepts window? Right, so you would expect that since something that is called copy area accepts drawables, something that is called clear area would also accept drawables, but in reality, no, it accepts the window and you can just use it for drawables. Yeah. Go figure. Go figure. Anyway, so let's actually set the foreground for this entire thing, dbgc, and it's going to be 0, and then we're going to fill the rectangle, right? So we're filling the rectangle, and I suppose this is going to be just 0, 0, width and height. There we go, it's going to be width and height. Okay, so now it works, and the implementation is a pixmap in here, as you can see, right? None of that is flickering, by the way, for me. So the only thing that is flickering for me is implementation 0, right? So the implementation 0 does flicker for me quite a lot. And if I switch it to implementation 1, it stops flickering because this one is using the double buffering extension, and 2 uses the pixmap as well. So none of that is actually flickering. So it would be nice to, like, instead of these kind of numbers, to have some specific constants. I wonder if we can do like a similar thing like in here, right? So yeah, we could have db none, which is 0, db xdb, which is 1, pixmap, which is 2, and ximage, which is 3. Right, so we could do something like that, and here we could just do db none, right? And okay, so it works, db xdbe, and it works as well. Okay, so now I can actually quite easily switch between different implementations and whatnot. Right, so yeah, here they are, different implementations, and you can choose whatever you want. We might as well actually, can I just do, wait a freaking second. So essentially I set this thing equal to that, and it continued macro expand this entire shit, and it actually expanded it to the value. Is this how it works? So whatever you put in here in the command line can continue macro expand? Really? Is that how, does it work in all of the compilers like that? This is actually, I didn't know that it will continue macro expand. Well, I guess it kind of makes sense because, yeah, I guess it does make sense. Right. So whatever you put in here continue to macro expand, so then it expanded to a specific number in here because it was defined. Okay, that's actually funny. I didn't know that. Well, I mean, it makes sense. It's just like I never thought about it. I really never thought about it, but it does make sense if you think about it. Yeah, it does make sense. So you don't have to define any of this shit. That's pretty cool. All right, so I'm gonna make a note about that. So because I thought that is gonna create a lot of problems, but apparently you can continue macro expanding this shit. All right, that's pretty cool. I wonder if we can actually make something like this. So we're gonna have a phony all, right? So this is a phony all, and we can do something like main none, then main xdbe, then main pixmap. Maybe I'm gonna put dots in here, right? And then this one is gonna be main none, and this is dp none none, and then I can have something like xdbe, xdbe, then I'm gonna have something like this, and this one is gonna be pixmap, right? And this one is gonna be pixmap. There we go. And I can just compile all of this shit simultaneously, right? So there we go. So now I have different executables, if you will, right? And then I can say, okay, so this is the none, no double buffering. Then we're gonna have xdb with xdb, and the next one is going to be the pixmap, right? So this is the pixmap. Okay, so but it will kind of make it difficult to git ignore this entire things. So it would be better to maybe call them slightly differently, but I don't really know how to call them. So none xdbe pixmap ximage, just to anticipate whatever we're gonna implement soon. And yesu kawaii freaking desu. Okay, so we implemented pixmap, implement pixmap double buffering, right? And I'm gonna push that right at the repo. For whoever was playing with like double buffering, you can now test at least 3 different ways of approaching double buffering in X11, right? So, and you can compare it on your machine and maybe play with like vsync options and see which one is working and stuff like that. So yeah, now you can do this kind of stuff. Isn't that cool? I think it's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and implement the last one. Did I push it? I don't remember pushing it. Yeah, it actually pushed it. So the last one is basically allocating like X image, and also allocating like pixels and stuff like that, and just drawing pixel by pixel, right? So that's basically what you're supposed to do in here. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna do elif db implementation. Maybe we're gonna actually start by introducing another thing in here. So this is gonna be main x image, right? And in here I'm gonna say pixmap x image, and the implementation is x image, right? So now if I try to compile, it's not gonna compile, right? Because some of the things are not implemented, right? So for instance, this is not supported thing in here. So this is implementation x image, and this one is gonna be x image. There we go. So you know what? I'm gonna compile with several threads, so it's instantaneous for me. Let's create ximage.c, and so the next problem here is implementation name. This one is going to be ximage. Okay, so we need to define the structure. This is going to be db, and we definitely will need display, then probably the window on which we're drawing everything, the graphical context, and probably the X image itself, right? The X image itself. I don't remember if it has to be pointer. I think it has to be pointer. But on top of that, we also will need to allocate the array of pixels, right? And I'm gonna just like preemptively just put it in here. So it doesn't know about uint32, so what I'm gonna do in here is maybe include stdint just in case. Right, so okay, let's implement db initialize. Right, so here we're gonna be accepting the pointer to that thing, then the display, and then the window. So this is gonna be the window, and let's go ahead and just initialize everything. So it's gonna be display, this is gonna be the window, and then we'll probably need to create the graphical context. I'm gonna steal some code from the other implementations. So GC, all right, create GC. So there we go, we managed to create the graphical context. And after that we probably need to allocate the pixels, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So this is going to be pixels, and I'm going to do malloc size of uint32 multiplied by width and height. There we go. So we have pixels in here. We have pixels. So let's create an image. So I'm gonna steal some code for creating an image from Wang tiles. Create image. Yeah. So this one is rather complicated, right? It's not really that complicated, but yeah, you'll need additional parameters. Specifically, we'll need the window attributes and whatnot, right? So which you can get from here, right? So here are the window attributes. Because we'll need the visual information of the window and the depth, right? And the depth in here. So, and I don't quite remember. So these are the, this is the stride. So that means I can replace it with the width, right? So this is going to be width. This is going to be width and height. Width and height. Now, this is the pointer to the pixels. So what I have to do in here, I have to just do db pixels. And I think that is it, right? So I think that is it. We created the image, and the image has to be inside of the double buffering context, right? There we go. So that should work theoretically. uint32t, there we go. So, and db clear. Okay, so here we're cleaning the back buffer, right? We're cleaning the back buffer. It's gonna be pointer, clean the back buffer. And this one is super easy since we're rendering everything into the pixels, right? We're rendering everything into the pixels. What we can do, we can just set pixels, mem set the pixels to 0. And this is gonna be size of a single pixel, and then the width and height. There we go. So we cleaned everything. Mem set, we don't have a mem set, probably because I need to include some string, right? Okay, fill rectangle. So the problem with image approach, right? You don't have a routine that can just fill a rectangle for you. That's the main problem. So because we fall back into just drawing pixel by pixel, so you cannot just use X fill rectangle, you have to implement your own X fill rectangle. Right, so there we go. We're gonna accept this kind of thing in here. db, so this is gonna be X, this is gonna be Y, this is gonna be W, this is gonna be H. There we go. All right, so, and essentially, yeah, you just need to iterate pixel by pixel and just set the pixel to a particular color. It's going to be slow. The implementation that I'm about to actually do is going to be relatively slow, I think, but it's for the sake of the demonstration, right? It's going to be for the sake of the demonstration. So I suppose we're gonna assume a couple of things in here. I'm gonna assume that width is gonna be greater or equal than 0, right? So this is one thing, and this is another thing. I could just set them to unsigned, but that will screw up the interface of the existing things, if you know what I'm talking about. But maybe I should not be afraid of that. Maybe I should not be afraid of that. So obviously you want this thing to be unsigned. and I just need to go through all of the implementations and put unsigned in all of them. But the question is, in all of the implementations, I also use xfill rect, right? I also use fill rect. Does it? Oh! And it accepts them unsigned. So this is a good sign that that's precisely what I have to do. I have to just go through all of the implementations and just, you know, use unsigned for the width and height of the fill rectangle. Luckily, all of the implementations are separate files. They all start with db underscore. It's super easy for me to just go there, find fill rectangle, and slap unsigned on, in here. Right, unsigned, unsigned. There we go. So this is the first, this is none. The next one, yep. Unsigned int, there we go. xdbe, unsigned, unsigned, there we go. And this one, there we go. Pretty cool, look at that, yeah. So this kind of organization of the code is actually quite lovely. So unsigned, I want to actually start iterating pixel by pixel. So it's going to be dx. Starting from 0 and dx less than width plus dx. And the reason why I want width and height to be, you know, unsigned is because I want to avoid situation when it's negative, right? Because it will bring a whole lot of the complications. You can develop a paradigm where the width and height of the rectangle can be negative. It is possible to do something like that. Usually, when you define a rectangle, right, you define its left top corner, right, and width and height, right? So here you go. So we defined left top corner, and also we defined width, and we defined its height, and as you can see, it's quite easy to reconstruct a rectangle out of that. Nothing prevents you from actually defining the rectangle so width and height could be negative. In that case, it's just going to look like this. So here is your negative width, and here is your negative height. And essentially what it does, it turns this point from being left top point to just bottom right one, right? And you can make an basically code that just handles that. But it's just more code, more situations to handle, and because of that, I want to avoid these complications and just make it unsigned. Right. So maybe a negative value, flip it. This is precisely what I was talking about. You need to flip it. You need to write more code, and that's precisely what I say. I don't want to write more code, and what you're suggesting, write more code. But I explicitly said I don't want to write more code, so no, sorry. So yeah, there we go. So we're iterating this entire thing, and this one is essentially x0 and y0, right? X is going to be equal to x0 plus dx, and this one is going to be y. There we go. So now we need to check if x falls into the range between width and height. So if this entire thing, x and x is less than width, and y less than h, there we go. And so in that case, we can set the pixel to a particular color, right? So this is going to be something like pixels x multiplied by the width of the entire thing plus y, and we're going to set it to like this. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to be doing. It's not the fastest way of doing that, right? It would be like a little bit better to maybe not check this kind of stuff on each iteration, but rather define the rectangle that 100% falls within the area that we try to draw, and never do boundary checks. But maybe the compiler will actually understand our intent in here and just move this condition out of the entire loop. I don't know, the compilers are really smart these days. So I almost don't want to ask this, but should you not use not be using signed ints just because UB lets the compiler not account for the overflow? You beware. You will never overflow this int, and this code can be performance. What code? What int? I have at least like 4 ints in here. So, okay. So comparing integer expression of a different signness. Okay, so I already checked that x is greater than 0, right? So it is greater than 0, so it means it's absolutely safe for me to cast this entire thing to unsigned one, right? Because I already checked that it's greater than 0, so it's not gonna, you know, screw up anything. Right, and in here I can just cast this thing as unsigned int. There we go. So what else do we have in here? Swap buffers. Okay, swap buffers is the interesting one. Swap buffers is the interesting one. Okay, because swapping buffers is essentially drawing the image on this thing. So I forgot how to do that. Put image. Yeah, there we go. So we have to do put image. So this is going to be our swap buffers. So this is going to be the display, and we're using drawable. So the drawable is going to be window, and this one is going to be GC, and then we're going to have an image, right? So the source is going to be like this. The destination is also going to be 0, and width and height is essentially width and height of the whole thing. So this is going to be our swap, right? This is going to be our swap. So window, I want it window actually. All right. Cool. So now we have an X image, and if I try to run X image, it disappeared. I wonder if it's the same for other things. No, it's not the same. So it's specifically X image. If I try the other things, XDBE looks fine, and pixmap looks fine, and image, let's do X image, yeah, ppfoop, X image, and it disappears. Okay, so I need to understand what exactly is going on. It's probably something very, very trivial. Something very, very trivial. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay. So this is the width and height. Do feel wrecked. Oh, I see that. Okay, so I'm checking actually this thing. Yeah, it has to be the whole window. And if I go to recompile, there we go. And it doesn't flicker for me as well, right? So, and it's segfaulted, nice. I wonder why did it segfault? I actually checked for this entire thing, so it shouldn't segfault, but I see. So it has to be like this. I'm really glad that it's segfaulted actually, because otherwise we won't be able to find that. Right, so yeah, there we go. There we go. So all of the three approaches don't flicker for me, but apparently it doesn't really matter because none of the stuff flickers for anybody apparently, and just I have a really weird configuration of my machine or of my Linux or something like that. And for everyone else, it's not a problem. But I still want you to look at these approaches and make some sort of like a catalog of different ways of doing double buffering. Some of them are legit, some of them are just imitations. But I still want to make them, right? So, and let's actually do a committee. Implement X image double buffering. Right, and I'm going to push that right into the repo. You can find the source code of this like catalog of these approaches in here, right? I'm going to put it in chat so you can test it. You can test it on your machine, but apparently I have a really weird machine where it is a problem. For anyone else, it is not a problem. But yeah, so I think we need to also mark this stuff somehow. So I'm gonna go to the README. So let's actually do it like that, because now what I can do, I can essentially dp non-c db xdbe c, db pixmap c, db ximage c, right? Links to the double implementations. Right, so and then if I push that, come on. Right, you can click on one of those links, right, and it will redirect you to this stuff. And for the pixmap, and so on and so forth. Maybe we can also do some stuff like none xdbe, pixmap, ximage, right, and update quick start instructions, and I'm gonna push that right at the repo. All right, so I guess that's it for today. Thanks everyone who's watching me right now. I really appreciate it. I hope today's stream was interesting. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Check out the stuff in the description and you know, the source code and whatnot. And I guess I gotta go. Thanks everyone for watching. Love you all.